Just for record-keeping purposes, I'm BJ Murphy. This is Anna Ratti. She's an intern student from East Carolina University. And one project we've been working on, we just finished the one project she was working on was a social media summit. And I told her that she didn't have to worry about the summit anymore. And what she's about to do is ask me some very basic questions. We have an opportunity through something called the Facebook Journalism Project. And basically they're trying to filter out fake news is the way I interpret it in their timeline, and they want to invest in some local journalism entities across the country, and think of creative ways to tell the news. And so they're putting some money up. It's not a lot of money, but we think our news model fits this description really well. So I asked Anna to this is due next week, and I asked Anna to work on it. She got to a point where she couldn't figure it out anymore. So I said, well, let's just record the questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And so that's kind of what this is about. So fire away, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Okay. So the first question is, how did you hear about this grant program? Like, how did you want to fill out this application and apply for this money?
Oh, well, how we found out about it was, and I know these need to be short answers, right?
That one doesn't have a word count, but I assume that one's short.
Well, so I'll try to keep these short then.
Okay.
I found out about it because Facebook did a targeted ad against me.
Okay.
So maybe through my interest or my likes or administering a page that says Neuse, Facebook targeted me in a sponsored ad, and they have for the past 6 months. I've seen it in my Facebook and Instagram feed. I'm still seeing, I saw it this morning in my Instagram feed. And so they're targeting me for this, is why it's been on top of my mind.
It's probably been like their target is like someone with this occupation or something like that, where it's like being sent to you.
So that's how I found out about it.
Yeah.
And why I think, what was the other part of the question?
Just how'd you hear about it?
Yeah, that was it. It's because Facebook and Instagram targeted ad me, and they have for roughly since before the first deadline. I found out about this is November, or we're almost in November. This is the third deadline they've had this year.
Okay.
And so it's been 6 months.
Okay, so this next question is more in depth, but it says, describe your project and the issue you're trying to tackle. Please include ideal outcome, how you build community through local news, cover an underserved community and or a local news desert, and how it affects revenue and sustainability.
Awesome. So I think Neuse is the epitome of this question, and that is what we saw happening in the market is the decline in local printed journalism. Okay. And so we said, can we create a news model based off of the back of this really cool device and social media and digital technologies? And talking about underserved, do it for free, right? Yeah. So you don't need to access your public news by putting in 2 or 3 quarters in a slot machine. That you can actually just subscribe to our newsletter and get it for free. Yeah. So you can, and most people that have 82% of Americans have a smartphone, right? And so if you have a phone, then you can access us through our email. If you don't have email, you can go to our website. If you don't understand websites, most people are on social media. So we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Yeah. We're posting all of our stories to all 4 of those platforms, plus our newsletter, plus our website. So we are doing something, taking today's technology and trying to tell the stories as we remember our grandparents 60, 70, 80 years ago. And the way they would go outside, get their newspaper, white picket fence, the dog, the coffee. 7 o'clock every morning we send out the newsletter, but you can access our content 24 hours a day. Okay. Did I answer all the pieces of that?
Yeah, pretty much how you build community, how you underserve.
Let's talk about community real quick.
Okay.
So during Hurricane Florence, we're a 2 full-time person operation with a lot of part-time videographers and journalists and photojournalists. So when you think about our operation, we have about 15 people that work for us, plus an intern here and there. But we were getting inundated with requests for information about road closures, and is this closed, building closed, or schools, or what's the weather going to be. We were inundated with that because we've become in a short time, a very trusted source of news, actual, factual, hyper-local news in our backyard. And so when our friends in Jones County, North Carolina, were experiencing the flood, and we were getting inundated with questions in Lenoir County, Greene, and Jones, we said, well, let's create a Facebook group called We Report Neuse, send everybody to that Facebook group that had a question, and let neighbors engage with neighbors who normally would not be connected to each other. So that is the reason why we did it. And we branded it Neuse because we wanted people to know that we were moderating this discussion. So the community has discussions there. We don't let for-profits advertise in that group. We do let the blood drive or the cakewalk or the nonprofit fundraiser post in there. But for the most part, is neighbors engaging neighbors, neighbors helping neighbors, and our role is to facilitate those conversations.
Okay. How will you know your project has been successful over this 6 months they give you?
So part of what we were thinking about for this Facebook journalism project was, we're doing a fairly decent job in only 16 months in operation of telling the everyday news. And so one thing like recording this, and I know you're just going to be typing these answers in, you can't submit this video. But one part of that is, how do we do a better job in a platform that people are paying attention to more, and that's video. And so what we're hoping to do as a sub-project of what we already consider Neuse being a really cool project for this Facebook journalism grant award, is to outfit this studio to better suit the needs of where we see the technology going and the eyeballs and the attention and where news is heading. So what we'd like to do is upgrade this facility. We've done a pretty decent job investing in some equipment here, but there's some soundproofing things that we've got to do because we're in a really cool art-focused building, and we need to separate the noise. We've got to do a better job with the lighting in here. Some of it was a cement pad floor, so we got to do a better job protecting the sound and things to do with the engineering studio and how that impacts what's happening in the studio. So our sub project of the Neuse project is to build out the studio in an effort to better tell the stories and news and the events of our own backyard.
So you'd say you would know 6 months down the road as if you're doing maybe double the stories you were doing before, triple the stories you were doing before.
I would say that the engagement of those stories would dramatically increase. And you know what, Anna, it could be double, triple, it could be dramatically more, but I think the success would be determined based on the engagement. That would be the number we would watch the most. It's not the number of stories we publish or the number of posts we have or the number of likes or followers on our page. It would be the watching a baseline of this is our engagement over the last 3 or 4 months or last 6 months, and this is what it would be since the Facebook Journalism Project helped us.
So what specific set of activities would this grant fund? I guess you kind of just answered that one. Who are the key players and resources you need to make this happen?
So we've got a really great relationship with Lenoir Community College. So we are actually helping, and this is a good part for this grant. Magic Mile Media and Neuse have partnered with our local community college to actually create a course using our senior tech engineer to teach students and those wanting some continuing ed live streaming technology skills. That partnership has allowed us to build a better network and better supply the needs of the community.
Tell us a little bit more about who you seek to serve and reach with your work.
The way we see the Neuse model is really designed for small town USA. We really think that once we get a better wrap our heads or a little bit better around how we're doing what we're doing and continue to watch the engagement rate, that this would be a model that we can take and implement in small town USA across the country. Whether you're in Ohio, California, Nebraska, South Carolina, it doesn't matter. But in terms of our own backyard and Neuse specifically, we've got to continue doing a better job of reaching the outer edges of the rural parts of our community. The people who live closer to the city centers, city proper, they have a pretty good idea we exist. And even some of those outliers in the rural areas, because of our attention to sports, they've paying attention. But we've got to continue to do a better job of letting people know that our free news service exists. And some of that is through whether it's sponsored ad posts or some guerrilla marketing strategies that we've tried to implement, from yard signs to sidewalk chalk to maybe even potential billboards. So we've got to continue to let people know that this free service exists, and funding like this can help us do a better job of reaching them.
Okay. How are you hoping to engage the community with this project? How will you draw upon diverse perspectives in the community or field or the proposed work?
So one thing that we have prided ourselves on is, like, for example, the idea of this project for Facebook Journalism Project is to better retrofit this studio. And the reason is because we believe that we have the opportunity and some of the infrastructure to do more community type programming. For example, in Jones County, we are a big part of something called Jones County Chat. We film it once or twice a month. The county manager is the host, and each time he brings in a guest host and another guest, and we're on the back side of that, recording that for them and helping to put out that content for them. We see building out this studio here as giving us the ability to do more election night coverage. Like right now, the studio is set up for a midweek high school sports show. We've got an election coming up, so we're going to do a live election show. But you're talking the studio being used right now, maybe in a 31 days time, 22 business day time period. The studio is really only being used about 10 times a month. And we really think that if we can improve the sound quality, improve the light quality, add a few more mics and a better camera, then we could outfit this so that we can produce 20, 30 different types of shows or 30 different types of content coming out of the studio. So we think that would drastically increase the amount of community-based shows we do: elections, sports, government, community updates, etc.
All right. So what will you use to measure the success? What metrics will you use to measure success and impact?
Well, since we're not basing our success on revenue, we are ad-supported, ad-driven, but we've always erred on the side of more content, not more ads. So I would still say that it's an increase in our daily subscriber rates. So as of this recording and this interview, we're at about 4,200 daily email subscribers, and we've done that in 16 months in rural eastern North Carolina. So I would say that the daily email subscribers would increase because we would take opportunities like these shows and mention that. So daily subscriber rates would increase, our Facebook engagement would absolutely increase. And I think those are going to be the two biggest indicators of our success.
Yeah, just the numbers you can watch as the months go on.
Right, and again, I want to stress it's not I think ad revenue will be a byproduct of all these other things. Our focus is on that, making sure that the content in that daily newsletter, the free newsletter, making sure that content is content that people would want to wake up, get an email at 7 o'clock, and actually read it and say, okay, this is what's happening in my backyard. Yeah,
so you're more so measuring like the expansion of news, like widening your audience and the people that are seeing it, opposed to trying to bring more money into this company. It's more so about the community growing with news.
Right.
Okay, so describe how this project will enhance organizational sustainability. What revenue goal has been identified for this project?
I don't see us taking the money that Facebook would potentially grant us and considering what type of return on investment Facebook might get or Neuse might get from it, because I have not defined our success based on revenue. Yes, we need more revenue. Yes, we want to grow financially because I want to add more people and increase the potential number of people working here. But our sole mission has been to provide free hyperlocal news with no AP subscription, so no national, international news. It's only community backyard with no pop-ups and no subscription fees. I mean, that really has been the core of what we're doing. And I think that will continue to be our mission. is to increase the number of subscribers who can access our content, reach people who normally aren't being reached, and make sure the people who typically are reached are still getting the quality content that they would expect and certainly deserve.
So have you done any community building work? If so, what community were you trying to reach? How did you go about it? And what were the outcomes and lessons learned?
So we've been on the background of establishing local government candidate forums to election night coverage to we are the live stream platform of choice for the local parade. And we have started for the first time ever in our backyard live streaming high school football games. That's been a challenge, and what we're finding is that most of the schools in our area have Ethernet access, but nowhere near where we need it. So the idea that we've had to drop 150, 200 feet worth of cord just so we can live stream a game is the reality of why it's been so difficult for us to actually do that. But we found a way, and in fact, I'm going out to a local school tomorrow to set up for another live streaming football game. But it's going to take us 3 hours to set up because we got to run cord and tape it down and then put people on the roof so that we have enough room in the press box, which is very tiny. So I think we've done a really good job of going to public and private institutions and trying to tell what's happening in government, what's happening in sports, covering floods, and trying to communicate the happenings to the public.
That's good. Do you anticipate the project having an impact beyond the scope of the grant program?
Absolutely. There's been little that we've done here. The unintended consequences of what we've done have always erred on the side of doing more good than less good. So, we wanted to live stream football games to test out our ability to actually do it. And it turns out that in our first broadcast, we had like 9,000 views. We were by no means expecting that. Our very first live election night coverage, it wasn't even for a very popular race. And it was just something we said, well, let's get a couple people back here and let's just talk about it and get the results as it comes in. And that one, at one point we had we ended up, because of the technical challenges at the local board elections, we ended up going live for 5 hours that night, and at one point had over 300 people watching us live. And for a small town like us, small area like us, that was a huge deal. So anytime we've tried something just because we thought it was the right thing to do, typically has ended up being that it went better than we anticipated and people engaged with it more than we thought would happen.
And I think just because you have grown up here and then you also served as mayor here, you know the community really well, and you kind of know what will stick and what maybe won't stick to the community and what they want. Okay, so last thing is anything that we haven't covered. Is there anything you would want them to know about your project or Neuse or Magic Mile Media?
I would say that one thing that, because one of the pieces of the equipment that we want to buy is a camera that is one that would most likely be stationed here, but has the ability of being used in the public. And the reason why I mention that is we're seriously thinking about redefining how some traditional local newspaper stories are covered, because we're not printing, we're all into digital and social. That, for give you an example, what I would call a gamer, meaning you go to a high school soccer match and you file a 300 to 500 word report on it. Well, included with that is certainly who won the match and their records. But all the rest of the meat, the other 450 words, is a lot of John Doe, kicked the corner kick and went off the head of such and such person, and there was 3 minutes left in the first half, and the power went out at 9 minutes and left in the game, and it's a lot of what I would call traditional papers. It worked, but it's a lot of fluff that for the most readers, they don't, honestly, from what I'm watching, they don't really care about it. And so what we're starting to think about is, how do we do more with videos at these local high school sports games? So, for example, that piece of equipment, we could take that piece of equipment and film highlights of the upcoming basketball season of a particular game, And instead of necessarily writing a 300 to 500 word document about it, we can kind of do a highlight reel of the game, package that up, produce it that night on the spot, and upload it, and tell people who won the game and what their records were. We really believe, and it's our hunch, that more people are going to pay attention to that than read a story.
Or even watch you live stream the football games, but like posting an hour-long video of a game, like nobody's going to sit and watch. They're going to go to the end and be like, okay, they won. So I think the highlight would be great, honestly.
And we would have that. It'd be easier for us to have that ability if we had this one of the pieces of equipment that we're asking for as part of our grant request.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions.
Good.
There's nothing else to.
See, you got on camera and did fine.
I can do it. I just
You got a great smile, good presence about you.